Yan Ryobing went forward with her sword and said on behalf of the Polar Sun clan, she is giving him one last chance to surrender without resistance, otherwise they will take him crippled. The other guys were shocked, because this spiritual daughter Yan Zhobing, he had heard that she was only 20, but she no longer had the sacred fire of the 7th rank and she was at the 3rd stage of the destroying realm. They thought that this sucker Qin couldn't take one of her blows and that she would swat him like an annoying mosquito. The girl shouted at them all to shut up. Fu Yao said that Qin is part of the Temple of the Buddha's Heart, which means that first they will conduct an internal investigation. Today Qin will leave with them, but if his guilt is confirmed, they will not cover for him. Pan found her as naive as she was beautiful. If they investigate themselves, how will they be able to verify their objectivity, even if he agrees to it? There are too many warriors here who will not be satisfied with this course of affairs. They all disagreed with her decision. Fu Yao asked what would happen if she had her own way. The head of the enemy clan replied that then they would have to fight not only with the Polar Sun clan, but with everyone present here. Qin came forward and thanked the head for standing up for her, but this battle was not hers. He wanted to sort everything out himself. He understood that if she did not renounce Qin even under such pressure, then he had done the right thing by choosing the Temple of the Buddha's Heart. The protagonist held out his spear towards the girl and said that if she could withstand one of his blows, she would surrender to their mercy. She laughed at his conceit. Pan began to laugh, because Qin does not think too highly of their clan and this is his fatal mistake. Qin shouted for this old dog to close his mouth, because he would be next. Yan Ruobing was angry that he dared to insult the head of their clan. She decided to make him regret it very much. She immediately launched a huge fire vortex at him, but Qin easily repelled her attack. The girl got angry and used the sun at the zenith technique. Qin flew straight towards her to attack, and the girl blocked the attack. Her armor began to burst and immediately she received an attack from Qin. The girl became very hurt and she flew forward and an explosion occurred. Pan and Chulin were shocked that she had lost from a single blow. Qin then landed on the ground, then walked up to her and pointed the spear and said that she had lost. She didn't even have time to reveal her one punch, as she had already lost. Pan believed that his damned werewolves had trained him so. As he had heard, in a fight with a Taoist elder, he fought at full strength, and that was quite recently. Chulin only thought that Yan Zhobing lost the fight as soon as it started. Kai and Shan was surprised with Qin's strength, and Yitong started shouting that the guy was doing well. Also, the head of Fu Yao wondered how strong Qin really is. Qin then pointed the spear at Pan and Chulin and using the dragon Yazi said he was standing in front of them and asked if they had the guts to grab him. The warriors were frightened by his aura and began to move back. Chulin said that Qin is a traitor who already defies the human race without hesitation. They will not tolerate this. He wanted everyone to pile on him at once and then they would compose songs about this day. Everyone cheered up and immediately rushed at Qin, who was preparing to give battle at full speed. Chulin believed that no matter how strong Qin was, he was still a person who was made of flesh and bones. Pan was also curious to see how long he could hold out against the angry crowd. But Qin just raised his spear and part of the crowd just flew away. Then others tried to attack him from the side and Qin began to twist the spear around him. That people just flew in different directions. Then the people from above tried to attack him with different abilities, but Qin summoned Yazi, who just threw all the people from above with one blow. Qin then used the thunder spear and struck the ground. Pan even had to cover himself with his hand. And after the haze, he saw that Qin was just standing on the crowd of the defeated crowd. He asked if that was all they were capable of. The other guys saw this and realized that Qin was not a man, but a demon in the flesh and therefore ran away. Pan had never met a man who put a crowd of soldiers to flight, but he hasn't even used his spiritual power yet, as long as he relies only on physical strength and combat skills. The old man shouted that Qin had committed enough crimes against the human race and he forced him to take over for him himself. Fu Yao was surprised and wanted to intervene, but Qin told her again that this was not her battle and he would sort it out himself. The girl looked at him surprised, but resigned. The guys shouted that Qin's tricks could scare stupid soldiers, but when he challenges the Temple of the Polar Sun, only a few moments remain before his death. He will pay for his betrayal with death. The head of their temple decided to take him personally, which means he is already a corpse. Qin only laughed and saw an angry Pan. He shouted that Qin finally died. Then the sky turned completely red and some rain began to fall. Qin and Pan were incredibly surprised. The dragon Yazi immediately appeared, who advised Qin to run away, from which Qin was still at a loss. After a certain sphere descended from the sky, other people were also surprised, because they had never seen anything like it. Immediately, some tentacles dug into them, which literally sucked the life and energy out of them. A silhouette appeared from this sphere and Qin prepared for battle. A malicious smile appeared. They show us a certain demoness who thought it was very crowded here. Pan called this beauty a vile creature, and the fact that there is no place for werewolves here and did not understand how she dared to come here. Immediately she appeared behind him and approaching him noted that he was too ugly, and she did not like such, so he would die among the first. She raised her hand and just destroyed it into molecules, and from the shockwave people fell to their knees. Everyone literally couldn't move, and Fu Yao didn't understand who she was. Qin realized that this was the commander of the werewolf army and did not understand why she came here. Then she turned her attention to Qin. She felt that a familiar smell was coming from him and assumed that he had killed the tiger general. The protagonist realized that she was a servant of the Queen of the Night from the underworld, a blood-sucking bat. She was able to immobilize him with just a glance. Judging by her cultivation, she had already reached the first stage of the fusion realm. If he used his trump card against her, being in full subjection to her, he would not be able to take a single blow, but he would still have to take a risk. Kneeling, he summoned the dragon Yazi. The girl asked why he was silent. Qin had the courage to kill him, but now he is afraid to admit it. She likes passionate people, but right now he disappoints her. Qin told her that he was not afraid of anything. It's just that she's so ugly that he tried to hold back the urge to vomit before he opened his mouth. The demon thought that now he was just flirting to arouse even more interest in her. She couldn't wait to taste his blood. Qin called the werewolves. He told her that he would rather die than let a vile creature like her drink his blood. He used the force, and the ground broke around him, and the demon jumped back. Qin tried to attack her, but the girl flew up to him and touched his forehead with her finger. Qin's spear fell to the ground, and the girl opened her mouth wide and bit Qin's shoulder. She sucked on him and drank his blood. The life was literally leaving the body, and it began to shrink. Then she let go of him. Qin's body fell to the ground, and she was very pleased. The protagonist was still alive, but in a very bad condition. Yitong shouted that she knew that Qin was not a traitor. Qianshan was very sorry for his friend, and the head of the Fu Yao clan began to laugh, because they all deserved it for their sins, and now people will get what they deserve. Bai looked at Chu Lin and he literally began to disappear, which made Bai very angry. The guys were all in shock, and the bald man understood that they were finished because they had brought this trouble on themselves. If Qin hadn't been called a traitor, he wouldn't even be here. Others believed that it was all because of Qin and he brought this punishment on them. The demon felt that none of the other people aroused her appetite and she decided to just kill everyone. Then she flew up and created a sphere. She let her into them and Shen began to laugh because she is able to grind an entire army. Werewolves are so strong now. He thought he made the right choice, bet on them and was right. 3 familiar Qin girls were sitting on their knees and a sphere was flying at them. They were already preparing for death, and immediately this demon grimaced and began to spit blood. Then she fell to the ground and sat on her knees. Qianshan did not understand what had happened and why the sphere had disappeared. Zhen ran to his mistress to help. Approaching her, he asked how she was. She hit him so hard that he flew up and ordered him to fuck off. Immediately, Qin stood in front of her and she asked him what he had done to her. He replied that she also liked the blood of the wasteland beast. She was shocked that he had the blood of a wasteland beast in him. Qin said that the incest of werewolves and wasteland beasts is detrimental to both sides. Having sucked so much blood out of him, all her internal organs should be on fire right now. Qin approached her and she called him a bastard. Because this is a forbidden technique, she did not know if he was afraid of the immortals, that they would punish all the beasts of the wasteland for this. Immediately, he grabbed her by the neck and Qin replied to her that he was not a wasteland beast, but a man. He doesn't care about their interspecies arrangements. She didn't understand where he got the blood of animals from then. Qin understood her question, but he is not generous enough to satisfy her curiosity. He was squeezing her throat hard and she just didn't believe that some cockroach had tricked her. But since she was going to die, she explained to him that she would take him and everyone else with her. She will use her last spiritual strength to curse them. Her punishment will ruin all the people here, and Qin should know that they will die because of him. He will live with this burden of regret for the rest of his days. A red sphere immediately appeared and Qin asked her if he thought he would feel sorry for them. He pushed the smoke away from him and added that he didn't care about them. Souls began to fly around ordinary people and they began to suffer very much. Life literally flew out of people and Qin went to Fu Yao. She said that everything that happened today was not his fault because these people were ready to tear him apart and asked him to leave faster. Qianshan said goodbye to him and Yitong with a smile on her face asked him to leave soon and not think about them. Qin noticed that these were just the dying curse of a weakened werewolf and did not understand why they were already going to die. Qin raised his hand and used the 9 heavens destructive fire technique. He swept through the entire arena and literally destroyed the curse. Now they can all leave together. Immediately, other people ran up to Qin and started begging him to save them, because they don't want to die. They all stood in front of him and admitted that they were wrong. They were all deceived, and since he did not betray the human race, he must save them. They didn't understand why he was procrastinating, because they were dying of pain. Qin noticed that they were all human beings and, of course, it would be more correct to stop their suffering. They did not understand why he was waiting and asked him to get rid of this curse as soon as possible. The protagonists said that they did not understand him correctly. They think that he will give them a helping hand and save them. The guys were surprised for a moment, and Kin added that he would not forget their expressions for a long time, not understanding the essence of what was happening. They declared him a traitor, wanted to capture, put on trial, and kill him. They wanted to sacrifice him to climb up the career ladder, and now they are waiting for him to save their lives. They don't deserve it. People asked him to save them, because he can't just watch such a crowd of people die right in front of his eyes. The protagonist laughed and said that for the sake of people, he swam through boiling water and stepped on fire, chest punched his way through thorny thorns, and they are just parasites who do not have their own opinions and are trying to profitably attach themselves to the strong. No matter how many of them died, he would not feel a drop of regret. Immediately, all the people started coughing up blood and slowly dying. Leaving, Kin added that he had originally wanted to put them out of their misery and let them die painlessly. But now he realized that they did not deserve it. He then told the head that they needed to pick up Yan Zhoubing and they could leave. And they all went ahead. Dying people said that they had managed to send news of Kin's betrayal to many sects and very soon he would join the dead. And also that even after death they would not leave him alone. After that, Kin saw Zhen lying down, who was very scared. Kin almost forgot about him and exhaled. He created a flame on his finger and fired it directly at Zhen, and literally he burned to the ground. Finally they could leave. He asked his friends if he had been too cruel to them. Tai and Chong replied that they had brought this outcome upon themselves, although she was saddened by the thought that the warriors who had risen to war against the werewolves had fallen to such an inglorious death. Yitong shouted that she thought it served them all right. They deserved to die. The protagonist sighed again and wanted to leave, but immediately his head hurt and he fell to his knees. Kai and Chong ran to him and asked what was wrong with him. Ken realized that he had drunk too much blood, so he is feeling weak, so they need to leave soon. He said that it was time for them and gradually lost consciousness. At the same time, the desert lands. The black dragon was resting in his lair and at the same time another dragon appeared above them. He went downstairs and the girl went with her. Then she took on a human form. She told her father that she was back. He woke up and was glad that his daughter was finally home. The girl began to tremble from fear. Black felt the blood of thoroughbred werewolves in her and thanked his daughter. He gladly accepted her gift and wanted to eat her. But immediately she stopped his mouth and asked what he was up to. She brought her to him not for lunch, but so that he would purify her blood and then she could become one of them. Black did not understand what he was talking about. Immediately, all the other monsters rebelled. They all began to surround her and the girl hid behind her friend. Immediately, she frowned and shouted, so that they all dispersed and went to bed, because they scare her sister, which the monsters did. Black explained that purifying the blood of the ancients is not an easy procedure. She just returned and immediately with a headache for her father. The girl replied to him that she was not going to discuss it, she was only notifying him. She also told him another piece of news. During her journey into the world of people, she met an interesting young man. Black asked, "And what is interesting about him?" She replied that he had the body of a wasteland beast, and the dragon was very surprised. Immediately, the black dragon began to clear the view. All around the monsters began to run away in panic. After a moment, the black dragon took on a human form, but was covered with a special black dragon armor. He was surprised that some person had the body of a wasteland beast. The daughter replied that his name is Kinyan. He owns the sacred fire of the 9th rank. He is very young, but extremely promising. She invited him to join them, but unfortunately he refused. When they decide to leave the desert lands and move to the outside world, Kin could help them a lot. Therefore, she signed a contract with him. My father started shouting, "Because you can't sign contracts with the first person you meet." He grabbed her hand, because he wanted to look at the seal. Then a certain purple aura appeared and he saw the dragon Yazi. Black immediately recognized his brother and the daughter thought that her father was delusional. He replied that everything was fine. For the beast of the wasteland, a contract is a sacred thing. Once signed, it means you have to honor him. Then he pointed his finger at the girl and ordered her to follow him. The daughter asked her not to be afraid, because her father had already agreed and he would not offend her. The girl followed him, and her father roared in 3 streams. He realized that since Kin is his last support, he promises that he will take care of him as his own son. Then he wiped his tears and said that in 7 months they would have a big holiday. And by that time he and that girl would definitely be related. The girl was shocked by his words and even almost cried. After that, we are shown in the depths of the earth's core, the werewolf palace. An unknown girl was sitting on the throne, and her servants were kneeling in front of her. It was the werewolf queen. The dragon had told her that a bat was a low-ranking creature. The bloodsucker originally didn't deserve to be among them. He believed that she had wrongly appointed her one of the 4 generals. She not only failed the task, but also died at the hands of a man, and considered it a disgrace. Black Bull added that there is one promising fire bull among his subordinates. He could replace the bloodsucker at least without loss of quality. The turtle replied that he strongly doubted it, because this fiery bull is very rude and stupid. He is not equal to a bloodsucker." The queen laughed and replied that the death of her ward made all of them noticeably activate their convolution. Immediately, all the subordinates tensed up. She added that she already has her own candidate for this position, but now it is much more important to her from whose hands her faithful bloodsucker fell. She doesn't have much strength, but she was still at the first stage of the fusion realm, and the entire territory for which she was responsible. There would be no more than 7 or 8 people of comparable level, and even from such an opponent, she would be able to escape unharmed. The dragon said that perhaps a unique person had appeared among the people. This happens sometimes, and the bloodsucker has always been arrogant and did not know the measure. Apparently, that's what ruined her. The Empress remembered that territory was called the Tian Empire. She wants the 3 of them to go there, find that man and try to lure him to their side, and if it doesn't work out, they have to kill him. The dragon was surprised and asked if for the sake of such a trivial task, the participation of all 3 would be required. He could have handled it alone. The Empress did not know what to say and frowning. Immediately all 3 knelt down and she said that they could be free. After a moment, they simply disappeared. That only silhouettes remained of them. Immediately, a certain fire appeared right in front of the Empress. Feng Sheng immediately began to loom right in front of her. The Empress welcomed the immortal into her home. He told her that starting today, the amount of mandatory donations for werewolves is doubling. The Empress was shocked by such instructions. Feng Sheng told her that this was not a matter for discussion, but an inescapable reality. She should know that she brought this on her own heads. From now on, they have no right to approach Qin Yu. Immediately he disappeared and the Empress was very angry and did not understand who this Qin Yu was. After that, we are shown the heavenly kingdom of the immortals. Shuan prettily swung on the swing and ate a lollipop. Feng Sheng began to descend from the sky and asked his sister if this decision was going too far. She asked him to be silent, because they dared to encroach on her betrothed, and this would be a warning to the werewolves. She thought that her kin was getting more and more delicious. Feng Sheng said that kin is too closely related to the beasts of the wasteland. It's better not to talk about him once again if rumors get to. But before he could finish, Shuan got angry, looked at Feng Sheng and replied that she already has the supreme seal, which means she will become the next ruler of all immortals, so no one will dare to spread rumors about her. The enmity between the immortals and the beasts of the wasteland has been going on for too long, and perhaps kin will help put an end to this. If the beasts of the wasteland finally submit to them, it should definitely be a serious achievement. Feng Sheng simply exhaled instead of answering. His sister thought he was worrying too much for nothing. By the way, from today on, he will live in the mortal world and secretly guard kin. This time he was lucky and he stayed alive. And next time he may not be lucky, so his protection will not hurt him. From this information, Feng Sheng was literally shocked that he was already petrified. After that, we are shown the secret grounds of the Temple of the Heart of the Buddha. Qin sat in the water and meditated. Fu Yao watched this picture and noticed that 10 full days had passed, and Qin Yu still did not wake up. Kai and Shan immediately appeared, who greeted the mentor. She asked if Qin had come to his senses. Fu Yao replied that he needed a couple more days and asked how the investigation was progressing. Kai and Shang replied that she had found out everything. Bai Fefan was a spy who had been infiltrated by the Polar Sun clan. In fact, he turned out to be their second spiritual son. Now they have returned to their temple, and Bai Fefan has taken the position of the head of the clan. Fu Yao added that they had signed their own death sentences. Kai and Shang added that when they returned, they immediately began to gather forces around them. They convinced everyone that the werewolf invasion was part of their temple's conspiracy. Unfortunately, many believed them. The Polar Sun clan and the Jasper Fairy clan are now jointly preparing to go on them with a punitive expedition. Also, many smaller clans joined them. The School of the Ruthless Sword remains on the sidelines for now. Fu Yao believed that the world had been turned upside down. Evil pretends to be good. Since they go to war against them, they will give them a worthy rebuff. She told Kai and Shan to summon all the mentors and the strongest students. She understood her teacher, and the head added that perhaps everything that was happening was for the best. The long-term rivalry of the 4 great temples has not revealed the strongest. It seems like it's finally going to happen. 5 days later at the spiritual spring, Qin was still sitting in the waterfall. Finally he opened his eyes. His hair stood on end. He lit up with an aura and the water around him rose. A scroll appeared, which he immediately opened and began to absorb. After that, he felt that it was not in vain that he sought to get to the source, because his body had strengthened even better than he had expected. Now bones, muscles, and joints are ready to withstand a lot, which means it's time to break through to the 5th stage of the Destroying Kingdom. A grade 9 pill and a trophy from the Tiger General's body should be enough for that. He immediately absorbed them and used the 9 Heavens destructive fire technique. All this fire was absorbed by Qin, and the water around Qin just flew away from him. Then the protagonist looked inside himself. Again, there were many different crystals. They all started flying into Qin again, and in a moment everything was ready. an incredibly huge yellow ray appeared, which could be seen from everywhere. The guy realized that he was now at the 6th stage of the destroying realm. He opened the scroll and realized that it was time for the 5th dragon beast, Yinglong, and poked at it. Immediately, a huge birch dragon appeared above him, which seemed to be flying straight at Qin. He wanted to devour the guy, but Qin didn't even move. Immediately, he dissolved and Qin swallowed him up. The protagonist realized that being at the 6th stage of the destroying realm and having the strength of 5 beasts, his current combat power is at least at the level of the 3rd stage of the Kingdom of Emptiness. His next goal is to reach the peak of the destroying kingdom and summon the 5th son of the dragon, the insatiable Tatot. When he has tout power, the subsequent cultivation will be rapid and abrupt. He stood up and stretched and immediately realized that there was no water around him. He began to think about how he could explain to the head the disappearance of the spiritual source. Fu Yao immediately appeared, who did not understand what was happening, but saw Qin, who had awakened. Immediately she noticed that there was no water under the Qin, and he just smiled and waved the water. She started screaming because she didn't understand what had happened to their source. After that, they were all in the main hall of the Temple of the Buddha's Heart. The head just stiffened. Yitong asked if he really had fully recovered, and Qianshan thought he needed to rest. The head noticed that it would be better if they asked what happened to the spiritual source. Qin replied that he had fully recovered and was even stronger than before. He is also very embarrassed in front of their temple for the source. Fu Yao was glad that he realized what he had done. Qin replied that he did not do it on purpose, and he will not allow the Temple of the Buddha's Heart to be left at a loss because of his stay. He created 3 scrolls that floated in the air. He said that these were 3 scrolls with heaven-level martial techniques and asked her to accept them as compensation for the damage. Fu Yao was shocked that these scrolls were of the heavenly level. Qianshan noticed that their spiritual source was very valuable, but not as valuable, and Yitong found Qin too kind. The head accepted them and replied that he really was behaving like a non-native. But in order to save everyone from embarrassment, she would leave them with her for now and immediately turned away, because she was embarrassed herself and the girls looked at her. Qin thought she was cute, even at that age. Then Ling appeared, who was glad that Qin had awakened. He noticed that the hero looked better than before and Qin thanked him. He turned to the head and reported that all her subordinates were already ready to take the fight with the Polar Sun clan and the Jasper Fairy clan, but they don't know yet who else they are going to attract to their side. He was already thinking of turning to the ancient demon. Fu Yao replied that this demon has been leading the life of a recluse for decades and has not left his mount. Moreover, he is too strange a character to be considered a reliable ally. Qianshan asked who the ancient demon was. The head replied that he was a free cultivator whose life path was unknown to anyone. 40 years ago, he came down from Yinshan Mountain. His appearance was terrifying. Even then, he was at the 1st stage of the realm of emptiness. She was very young, but her mentor took her with him to meet him. That day, the Yinshan demon defeated her mentor with just 1 blow. Moreover, the Yinshan demon challenged the other heads of the 4 great temples as well. It was also enough for him to defeat the heads of the Polar Sun clan, the Jasper Fairy clan, and the Ruthless Sword School one by one. Qin thought about it and realized that Fu Yao was already more than 50 years old. The head was shocked and said that she was only 49. After that incident, he went alone to the desert lands, although he returned from there badly wounded, but clearly not empty-handed. After his return, he challenged many temples throughout the Tian Empire and was never defeated. In the end, it was their Temple of the Heart of the Buddha who summoned his supreme ancestor, who defeated him. After that battle, the Yinshan demon went into the lock on Yinshan Mountain and did not appear again. 40 years have passed since then. Qin thought about it, because in his past life he had heard rumors about the Yinshan demon. He was described as an absolute madman. In his picture of the world there was neither good nor evil. For the sake of increasing his cultivation, he was willing to do anything. Qin assumed that the Polar Sun clan had made him a tempting offer. Len noticed that if so, then their temple would have to summon the Supreme Ancestor again. Fu Yao replied that the Supreme Ancestor also went into the lock decades ago and it would not be easy to summon him. Immediately, one of the students appeared and reported to the head that a person from the Merciless Sword School had come. She ordered him to let him into the hall and he agreed. After this warrior came in, Qianshan recognized him and his name is Chu Han. She said that since their last meeting, she had managed to officially join the Ruthless Sword School. She greeted the head of Fu Yao and everyone present. She also noticed that she hadn't seen Qin for a long time and he nodded. Today, she came to their scar to express the position of the Ruthless Sword School. They are ready to support the Temple of the Buddha's Heart and fight with them against the Polar Sun clan and the Jasper Fairy clan. The head asked on what conditions they are ready. She replied that when it was over, they would borrow Qin Yu for a while. The protagonist was surprised and Fu Yao even decided to ask again. They want to use his sacred fire of the 9th rank for their needs. This is their only condition. The head told Qin that even though he was with them now, she had no right to make such decisions for him. It all depends on him. Qin replied that he agreed, and Chu Hanny thanked him from the bottom of her heart. Then she told the head that since Qin had given his consent, it meant that from now on they were allies. They will be ready to act on her orders. Fu Yao was glad and replied that a big battle was waiting for them ahead. But having the Ruthless Sword School as allies, they were not afraid of the enemy even if he attracted the Yinshan demon to his side. The girl noticed that her task was over and she had to go back. Then she started to leave and whispered to Qin that she would be waiting for him in the city today. She needed to consult with him. Qin was surprised and did not understand what she wanted. After that, Qin walked through the night city where life was in full swing. Then he noticed Chu Handy, who was standing near the tree. She was very beautiful, and approaching her, Qin asked what she wanted to consult with him about. She asked him to follow him, and the surprised Qin just scratched his head. After that, they were in the hotel on the second floor. She stood in front of the door and told him to come in. Qin was surprised and asked if she would go. Confused, Hanny replied that they were not on a date here, and assured him that he would not be harmed. Qin didn't understand who was there. Opening the door, Qin saw a beautiful woman in front of him, who was glad that he had come. Qin asked who she was. The woman clearly knew him and noticed that he looked like someone. Qin apologized to Auntie Zio for not recognizing her right away. She replied that it was okay and was glad that at least he remembered. He and her father had been friends since childhood. She was sorry that the Qin family had faced such a misfortune. After they sat down at the table, and she added that she was aware of what was happening to him. She thinks that if his father had the good fortune to watch him, he would be proud of him. Qin asked Zio not to worry about this, because he would not shame the good name of his ancestors. She was glad to hear that. She was also looking for a meeting with him to tell him something very important. Qin was surprised and asked. Auntie replied that you should not trust the school of the Ruthless Sword. Qin was surprised and asked again. In words, they are ready to help the Temple of the Heart of the Buddha in the war against the clans of the Polar Sun and Jasper Fairies. But in fact it is a conspiracy. The Merciless Sword School made a deal with two clans long ago. They are all bastards of the same litter. At key moments, they will betray the Temple of the Buddha's heart. Qin realized that this would indeed be in the spirit of the Ruthless Sword School. They believe that their plan is perfect, but it is not destined to come true. She summoned the ring and added that, however, he still had to be careful. Her sect of immaculate souls, though small, but they also have hidden powers. Soon, she would help him neutralize the Merciless Sword School. She handed him the ring. Among other things, there is a pill of 9 cycles of Kai rotation inside the ring. It may come in handy for him. And most importantly, there is the spirit of the Spear of the God of War. Qin was surprised by this information. She does not give him the spirit of the Spear of the God of War from a good life at all. But after all that the Qin family had to go through, she has no other choice. Now all hope is in him. She believes that he will be able to skillfully use this power. Qin realized that Auntie Zio had been carrying the spirit of the God of War all this time. In his previous life, after returning from the desert lands, he had been trying to find him for a long time. In view of the failure of his attempts, he eventually decided that with the death of his father and grandfather, the spirit of the spear was irretrievably lost. After all, by the time Aunt Zio returned from the desert lands, she had already died from the invasion of werewolves. Zio added that in such turbulent times, even decent people can show themselves from the worst side. His father was a great warrior, but died as a result of a vile conspiracy of trusted people. He should be very careful. Now inattention is an unacceptable luxury. He's the last living man in his family. He asked her not to worry, because he would be fine. Moreover, the day will come and he will return the former glory of the Qin family. Zio was glad. She admired his attitude and determination. Just about their conversation today. He should not tell anyone, and also take up the assimilation of the spirit of the Spear of the God of War. At the moment of a great battle, he can serve him a great service. Then Qin stood up and folded his hands and asked her to take care of herself. She should not risk much for the sake of eliminating the Ruthless Sword School. If she feels danger, she should immediately abandon this venture. For him, her life is much more important. He summoned the ring, because he wanted the spirit of the Spear of the God of War to appear, and he ordered him to appear. Immediately, a spear appeared from the ring and a huge beam appeared directly from it. Qin felt a strong will to fight and crush the enemies. No wonder it was considered one of the main treasures of our family. A huge fire whirlpool appeared, spun, and a fire demon appeared right in front of Qin. The protagonist knew that everything has a soul, weapons are no exception. When the will of the weapon and its owner are mutually communicated, the spirit of the weapon is born. There are very few warriors capable of awakening the spirit of weapons. There are no more than 100 items of weapons with spirit on the entire continent. As a child, he only heard from his father that the Spear of the God of War has a spirit. But in his previous life he never saw it. The spear spirit realized that this was a descendant of the Qin clan. He asked him what he wanted. Qin felt a strong power and the spirit asked again. The protagonist said that he is a proud son of the Kin family. His blood is boiling and he is eager to punish enemies. He is determined to fight for the good of the human race. He is determined to destroy the werewolves. He wants to protect law and order on his land. The spirit started laughing a lot and noted that it was a great speech. He took the spear and added that if he wanted it to be in his service, he had to prove that he was worthy of it. Kin knew that it would not be easy to subdue the spear of the god of war. He also took a spear and summoned the dragon Yazi. But Kin was ready for this and got into a fighting pose. Then they pushed off and both jumped straight at each other and collided with spears. They were both glad to meet in this battle. Then the hero jumped back and found it curious. He decided to summon the first thunder spear, which the spirit also did. After they both used the spirit reduction technique and they collided, that there was an incredibly big explosion. Immediately, Kin jumped back using the second thunder spear, flew straight at the spirit, which surprised him. Kin was flying at supersonic speed, and then in front of him he saw the dragon Yazi, who wanted to grab the spirit. After a moment, he grabbed it and literally snapped it. Kin immediately used the third thunder spear. After that, he let him down and used the ancestor's spirit. The spirit began to literally spin and Kin was surprised. Immediately, the spirit also used Kin's technique, but he managed to dodge. Then he was right behind him. The spirit used the second spear. Kin managed to turn around and block the attack with a spear. The protagonist flew down, falling down.